reassurance force with backing from the United States would be positioned deeper within Ukrainian territory. Joining us now to discuss is Andrei Schwartz, geopolitical analyst from Sofia, Bulgaria. Andrei, welcome. Now, in the absence of unanimous public support across Western societies for sending troops to Ukraine, how likely is it that a principal agreement on deploying reassurance forces can be reached, particularly given the fear of border spillover or escalation with Russia?
A very important question and something that is on the mind of leaders of European nations, of the United States, as well as citizens, as you've correctly hinted at. And so this is what this three-layered approach to the security of Ukraine post a ceasefire agreement or a peace agreement might provide. So as you've mentioned in the intro, the first layer would be provided by a party which is agreeable to both Russia and Ukraine. And that reduces it to a number of factors, including one which Azerbaijan is an important part of, the Organization of Turkic States, as well as the Gulf Cooperation Organization. And possibly another name which was presented over the last few days was China. I would say that one of the two first options that we've mentioned now is more likely to be, on the bingo card of both countries, of both Russia and Ukraine. This is the first layer. The second layer is composed of Ukrainian forces. And this is really what is the most important layer, the one which would be the last line of defense, really, for Ukraine. The third layer is similar to the first layer. It's more of a symbolic layer. Up until this moment, this is what it looks like. One of commitment to peace from others, not only from Ukraine and Russia. And this layer would be composed of European states, part of the coalition of the willing, supported by the United States as well, with aerial support, with information support, and possibly also with strike support, primarily aerial support, but also land support from the bases in Poland, in Germany, Italy, and beyond. So the risk of spillover is obviously on the minds of everyone involved in all layers presented before. Everyone will want to avoid a direct confrontation with Russia, which is why this plan is likely to fail. In case Russia is interested at one point in the future in launching another attack on Ukraine, this is exactly the fault point, the fact that all countries will try to avoid getting into the war with Russia. So ultimately, as with everything in life, it's not only a matter of preparedness and of muscle, but really of where the mind and soul is as well, whether you are ready to commit to something which is principled, which is right from a moral standpoint, whether that risks you getting bruised or not. So this is really on the minds of everyone, and this three-layered plan is just an idea at this point.
Okay, and meanwhile, Andrei, on the battlefield itself, Ukraine appears to be pursuing its own pressure tactics. Overnight, Ukrainian drones reportedly struck targets in Russia's Rostov region, the very area from which many logistical operations into occupied Ukrainian territory are launched. Now, to what extent can such strikes, however limited they may be, contribute to making Moscow more amenable to negotiation?
I think President Trump said it very well last week. You cannot win a war or force a ceasefire, at least, or a peace accord, unless you inflict damage to the enemy who's launched such an invasion, such a war onto your country. you need to do that. So this is what Ukraine has been doing well for the past year or so, including in the areas of Russia where they moved forces by land. And this will likely put a bit more pressure on Russia. The problem is that up until the people in Moscow and St. Petersburg feel that their children are at risk, which is not what has been happening for the past 3.5 years. It was mostly people from the minorities, from the autonomous regions of Russia, from Siberia and beyond, which were sent to the front and killed and maimed in this attempt to destroy Ukraine. Up until that point, it's unlikely that they will put pressure, meaningful pressure, on Putin and his group to cease and desist from this plan. So I highly encourage the Ukrainian forces to continue inflicting damage on the Russian soil itself. I think this is what any country in a similar situation should be doing, regardless of the enemy. But is it enough to get Putin more amenable towards a ceasefire, as you've nicely put it? I do not know. I think it's really up to the United States, to the Trump administration, to put a lot more pressure. Tariffs have kicked in, starting today, onto India for the fact that they've continued purchasing oil and gas from Russia. So this is the type of pressure that will also help convince Putin that it's time to call it quits. Is it enough to then be relaxed on the Ukrainian side that Russia has stopped with its ambitions of destroying Ukrainian independence? I do not think so. I think this is why they need to be cautious. They need to be supported by the US and by other countries, by European countries, in securing the front and in strengthening their armed forces to prepare for the next time either Putin or someone else who will replace him, naturally or otherwise, sooner or later. They might want to do the same, or they might want to, via hybrid active measures, put there a puppet regime in place.
And Andrei, how realistic is it to deploy neutral peacekeepers acceptable to both Kyiv and Moscow to monitor a demilitarized zone?
I think the success of these attempts, were quite shallow in producing results, isn't it? You've seen it also in your region. We've seen it in the Middle East. We've seen it in other areas. We've seen it. There were some successes, between Serbia and Kosovo, for example, and in other parts. But in general, these efforts, as I was hinting at in the preamble to our conversation today, were destined for failure, whether they were United Nations deployments or whether they were other types of deployments, because the country which is supposed to provide forces, or the coalition of countries that is supposed to provide forces that will secure the buffer zone and the agreement, will always be wary of risking the flesh and blood of their own in a conflict between two parties to this war. So whether it's on a temporary basis for a few years, and if all hints, all intelligence point towards Russia restraining her ambitions, then this will be successful, simply because it will not be tested by Russia. once Russia, or if Russia is determined to again start military, attacks of one type or another, this will be the moment where the test of truth will be deployed, and we'll see the reaction of the buffer zone coalition in one way or another.
Okay. And lastly, Andrei, what role does the coalition of the willing play? Can it translate into an effective peacekeeping or deterrence force?
It's mostly a deterrence force to the side which was attacked really at this point. I do not think that deterrence by a third party, especially if it's not the United States or NATO, will mean much to the ambitions of either Putin or, as I was suggesting, any leader that will take over from him. Russia has not shown such restraint in the past, and I do not think that it will show such restraint in the future. That being said, again, countries of the Turkic coalition and organization, or the Gulf cooperation partners, are countries which Russia does not want to to be on the wrong side of, for commercial, especially for commercial reasons, and also because Russia is trying to co-opt these countries into a coalition which will change the balance of power versus Western countries. So they will not want to be on the wrong side of Azerbaijan, Kazakhstan, and Turkey primarily. If those will be the countries that will agree to such a mandate, and they will be accepted by the two parties.
Okay, Andrei, thank you so much for joining us on the program today.
Thank you so much.
Now, after the break, we'll look at key stories shaping the region. Stay tuned.